Okay, I just got word that my husband's going to be home in 1 hour and 18 minutes. So we got a time limit on how long this can go. We're going to see if we can keep it under that. I will see you on the other side. Welcome, hello everyone, and thank you for joining me for, I think, episode 62 of the Gary Knits, Gary Rides Craftivism podcast at the intersection of making things and doing good. My name is Gary. I'm a knitter and a crocheter and a sometimes designer, and every couple of weeks I come to this little corner of the YouTube universe to share what I've been working on, as well as give you some ideas on how we can all take our love of making things and do a little bit of good in the world with that. I hope you're well. I hope you all are having real spring. We just keep getting fake spring for like a day, and then it goes back to what they call around here. Well, it was historically, I always heard it as June gloom, but we're a month before June, and so now they're calling it May gray and June gloom. So I don't know if we'll ever see full California sun like it was advertised, but we're making the most of it. I actually don't mind because I like to have little layers on. So it has been a couple weeks. Relatively quiet. Not too much has gone on in life. It's a busy couple of weeks here for me. Business-wise, I've got a trip later next week up to Seattle, and then back relatively quick, but just lots of meetings and things like that. So it's a busy part of the year in that regard. In terms of fun stuff, right before Easter, we went to the LA Philharmonic. We had to swap shows because we had a conflict. I can't remember what it was, but I'm so glad we did. We went to this. It was a world premiere. It was the composer's name was Carlos Simon, and it was called The Good News Mass, and it was like a gospel mass. So it was structured like a traditional Catholic mass, but it was the LA Philharmonic Symphony conducted by Dudamel. So orchestral music, but infused with some gospel. There's a huge gospel choir. There was a spoken word piece, almost like a preacher. And it was just a phenomenal evening of music. It, like I said, it was the world premiere. They did it 2 nights. I hope it was recorded. I hope that they are going to be doing this other places, because it was a really, really fantastic evening of just uplifting music. I'm not even a religious person, but it was very, very moving. And then sort of a little bit of a juxtaposition, although similar because it has themes of the Black Church. We went to go see this new Ryan Coogler movie, Sinners, and it is fantastic. If you don't like horror movies, then maybe not your speed, but it was just really, really well done. Some amazing music, and just really interesting themes, and sort of set in the Jim Crow South. So it ties in a lot of themes around that, but also about cultural appropriation and things like that. So it's a great movie, well worth seeing. Fun to see in a group because it's action packed, and we saw it on a big screen. It was really really good. So highly recommend that. But that's about all that's been going on the extracurricular front. Lots to talk about knitting wise. Not much on the finished things, but I've gotten to that point in the year where the whips are starting to take over. I feel like I need to get some things finished, and unfortunately it's also that point where my knitting for gifts and things that are on a timetable have started to encroach on my ability to get things done on those timetables. So we'll talk a bit about that. On the Craftivism side, a few things I wanted to mention. First is a yarn fundraiser. So this is A yarn market, which is a local yarn store in Carmel, Indiana, has paired up with a dyer called Indigo Guinea Fibers. I will link everything down below in the show notes. Here is a QR code. If you are not watching this on your mobile device, you can scan that QR code and it'll go right to the show notes. I'll mention all of the makers and designers and dyers and everything that gets mentioned today. I will list that down below. But a yarn market, Indigo Guinea Fibers, have come up with a collaboration. It is for a skein of yarn. It's called Proudly You. Here's a picture of it. And 40% of the profits of that yarn are going to be donated to the ACLU as part of, I think, a kind of pre-Pride Month celebration fundraiser. So go check that out. I don't know how long it is going to be available, but again, I'll link down to the website where you can pick that up down below. Also on the yarn front, Adela at Lola Bean Yarn Company has re-released her Black Panther collection. It's been, I want to say it's a couple years since she did it the last time. If you remember my Clapo Tea, I did that in one of the Black Panther colorways from Lola Bean Yarn Co. So she's got the original 9 colors that she dyed it before. She's tweaked some of them. She said she's improved her skills on the dyeing side, and so she's made some tweaks to some of the formulas on some of the original 9 colors and can come up with 3 additional brand new colors. So those are up on the Lola Bean Yarn Co. website right now for pre-order. The cool thing about that, in addition to the yarn, because it's all lovely, is that she is going to donate $5 per skein from the Black Panther collection to the Chadwick Boseman Foundation for the Arts. And so that's a foundation that was started after the death of Chadwick Boseman, and it supports emerging artists from underrepresented communities. So $5 from every skein of that Black Panther collection is going to be donated to that foundation. So great cause, beautiful yarn, win-win for everyone. So go check that out as well. Similarly on the yarn front, and this is I could probably should hold off, but I'll mention it again in a couple weeks because she said it's going to happen in the second half of May. Lou over at Old Rusted Chair, I've mentioned several times, she has a yarn that she calls Rebel Girl. Every so often she does a batch of Rebel Girl. It is always a fundraiser for Abortion Care Tennessee. So she said she wanted to do another fundraiser and is going to double all of her donations from that in the month of May. She's going on vacation for the first part of May, and then she's going to come back, and in the second half of May, we'll have Rebel Girl available again for order. So keep your eyes peeled for that. Every skein sold, there's a donation that gets made to Abortion Care Tennessee, which funds abortions in the state of Tennessee, where things are difficult in terms of getting that health care to women. So those are the kind of yarn-centric things that I came across my feed over the past couple of weeks. Again, I say this every time, but if you see something, say something. Actually, the yarn market, the Proudly You yarn, that came from one of you all. Marianne, thank you for alerting me to that, because I can't see everything, especially since I'm trying to spend less and less time on social media. Especially on Instagram. So it's getting a little harder to find everything that's going on out there. So I appreciate it when folks shoot me an email or tag me or DM me on Instagram or Blue Sky with some ideas, things that they've seen across their feed where folks are doing fundraisers or doing some good in their community through their fiber arts craft, whether that's designing or dyeing or making or whatever. The other thing I wanted to mention, not really crafting related, although I guess poster making counts as a potential craft, but coming up on this weekend on May 3rd, I think it's May 3rd across the country, but tomorrow, May 1st, is May Day. There is an organization called Mayday Strong, which is organizing protests and rallies all across the country on the 3rd. There's going to be one here locally, which I'm going to go check out. And these are ongoing protests of all of the things that have been going on here in the U.S. in terms of, particularly in this case, cutting of funding for education, for science and research, as well as protections for workers. So there's going to hopefully be a big union contingent as part of these these protests. So there's over 1,000 of them being organized around the country. If you go to maydaystrong.org, there's a way where you can just put in your zip code and you can see all of the events going on around there. So if you are so inclined, great to continue to make a show of force out there in the streets. Keep building on this momentum that we have built to push back against the very worst of the new regime, and show folks that they're not alone, and build some community while you're out there in the street. Just be safe and be nonviolent. So that is that. The other thing that I wanted to talk about on the sort of Craftivism front, it's a little bit early, but I wanted to start talking about it sooner rather than later, and that is the Pride Pod Mal. So if you remember last year, Peggy from Spinning on Two Wheels, an audio knitting crocheting podcast, reached out to a bunch of LGBTQ plus podcasters with this idea of the Pride Pod Mal. Very low key, very laid back, but basically wanted to raise up LGBTQ plus members of the community who are dyers or designers or makers, and just highlight all the fun and amazing work that they are doing. Had a bunch of different podcasters who are just promoting people over last year during Pride Month, during June. And even though my sort of Peggy reached back out to me and we had a little bit of a discussion. Oops, my rack of socks drying outside just blew over the wind, so I'll have to get that in a minute. She reached out to me and I said, I'm just sort of like, everything's been such a weight, just the energy level to try to get anything going is low. But I said, given all of the attacks on our community since the regime change, I felt like it was just something that I wanted to do to raise up members of the community during the month of June. I think it's going to be a difficult Pride for a lot of folks, just given the attacks, given the violence that's been going on against, especially members of the trans community, but they're coming for us all. So I said, let's just do it. We'll do it again. And I've started, there's a Ravelry group, I will link to it down below, where I've started the initial thread. I will try in the next day or so to put up some additional threads so that dyers and designers and makers can highlight what they've got going on. If they have special either patterns being released during Pride or special colorways that they're going to be selling during Pride, want to make sure that folks get a chance to see those. So we're going to try to promote those in any way we can, but there's going to be a thread for FOs during this make-along, crochet or knit. But as long as you're using either a pattern from a LGBTQ plus designer or a dyer, or even using stitch markers, anything that is sort of elevating someone from the community who is in this Fibre world. We're just going to have a WIPs thread, and then post your progress, post your finished items. It's just for fun. There are going to be prizes. I'm going to do prizes every single week, so I'm just going to randomly pick someone who's posted in that WIPs thread, and I've got some yarn and some other stuff to give away to folks. But it's going to be really low-key, just a way to sort of come together, share what we're working on, highlight some of the amazing creative folks in our community and in the Fibre world who are doing stuff, and promote what they're doing. So go over to the Ravelry group and look for that. If you are a dyer or designer or a maker or another podcaster, feel free to reach out to me and we can talk about how you can participate. Again, it's all going to be very low key, but I just felt like we needed to be doing something. There's been so much bad news so far this year that I thought just something that was fun would be a great thing to celebrate and be participating in. So that is going to come. So the actual make-along will run through June 1st through the end of June. And that's when we will collect the photos in the whip thread. I think that is basically it, unless folks have some other ideas they'd like to do something. I'm totally open for that as well. For me, I'm going to be working on a special project, and one I will go ahead and mention as the first promotion. There's a dyer named Mary. Her yarn company is called Republic of Yarnia, and she's a dyer, and she's also like a historian. I think she specializes on medieval history, and she has a kind of like an advent. It's a countdown. They're called Pride Packs. They have 15 minis, and then they have 15 queer medieval history facts that are that she packs up there, along with some other goodies of stitch markers and things like that. Last year, during the Pride Pod Mao, she was selling a countdown and donating some of the proceeds to Knit the Rainbow. She knew that I had done a lot of work for Knit the Rainbow, and so she generously gifted me one of her sets from last year. It came, I don't know, I can't remember if it came during June or right before June, but I already had a project I was working on. I was also, in the midst of trying to do my final AIDS life cycle, and so I was so grateful, but I said, listen, I'm not even going to unwrap it. I'm going to keep it for next year, and then next year during Pride, that's going to be my Pride project. So she has a new one this year. Again, it's called Pride Packs. Links down below, and it's set up very similar to the one last year. So here is mine from last year. I didn't unwrap the yarn, so each of the little minis, I think they're 20-gram minis, comes in a little wrapped up deal with the day on it, and then each of the little facts comes in a little envelope. So what I'm going to do is I picked out a pattern. It is called Brioche Adventure. It's a big wrap by Jonathan Tallow, and I'm going to make that using my Republic of Yarnia last year's Pride Pack kit. Here's her card. And so what I'm going to do, because it's a brioche, kind of a brioche fade, so I kind of don't want it just to be random colors in the order necessarily that they pop out. So what I thought I would do is, for the month of May, is over on Instagram and Blue Sky, every 2 days I will unwrap one of last year's yarn colors and the queer medieval fact that goes along with it, and share those. And so you can play along. If you would like to order Mary's Pride Pack for this year and join me in making the Brioche Adventure from Jonathan Tallow, that would be a fun idea. There might be some special little prizes for anyone who has that as their pattern. No promises, but I think that'd be kind of fun as well. So you want to go order her Pride Pack for this year, grab the pattern. You've got a month to get it. I think she said, I just looked at her website, I think she said she's starting to ship those out sometime in May. And play along. I think that'll be really fun, and I'm really excited to start to open this. So thank you, Mary, for this last year. I said I was going to do it this year, and I think that's going to be fun, even though I've got a lot of projects, and I'm going to be gone for a lot of the month of June. I think I can make this work. No promises that I will get it finished by the end of the month, but as with every make along that I've ever organized, it's all about participation, not about completion. So there are no prizes for completed works. There are only going to be prizes for whips in the thread. But I think that would be fun. So if you think you might be interested in joining me, drop a comment down below. Let me know if you would be into doing that. You could also just grab 15 mini skeins. I'd have to look at the pattern. I've done a little bit of looking at it. I think it's going to work. I may need to grab like another skein just as filler, but it does look like that type of pattern that you could also just kind of go until you're close to finish. So stay tuned over on Blue Sky on Instagram. Over the next few weeks, I'm going to be unwrapping these and dropping some queer medieval facts on you. Hopefully there's not any repetition in what she's doing this year, and I'm not going to be spoiling anything for anyone in that regard. So I think that'll be fun. Pride Pod Mal starting June 1st. Brioche adventure for me. So I'm looking forward to... it's been a while since I've done some brioche. Someone was just in one of my knitting groups was working on something, and I was like, oh, I finished that brioche blanket, and I've kind of feel like I want to do some brioche. So that'll be a fun project to start on. Let's get to the regular knitting content. As I said, not much on the FO front. I have one FO, one hoe, and a whip parade. Let's do the FO first. This was my most recent walking project. As you recall, I'm trying to, on the days that I don't go to the gym, I'm trying to go on a 2.5-3 mile walk. It has been hit or miss with my success rate in doing that, but the last couple weeks have actually been pretty good. So I've done quite a bit, and the great news is I can knit while I walk, and I can also listen to an audio book while I walk. So killing 3 birds with 1 stone. Not going to complain about that. So this was my latest walking project. This is the Be-Wind hat. Oh, and I always forget who did it. It's here down below. This is one of my favorite go-to charity hats. It's a very easy pattern to memorize and just sort of like go. And I think that these nice little slip stitch swirls give you a lot of bang for your buck in terms of something that looks like it's a lot more challenging than it is. This hat actually served as the inspiration or partial inspiration for my Knit Stars pattern last year, because I like the way that even obviously it's self-striping yarn and you can see that it's striped, but just that little swirl kind of breaks up the stripes a little bit and makes it not feel so stripy, even though it obviously is. This is Knit Picks Felice worsted, and the colorway is called Double Dog Dare. I used it to make some hats for my AIDS Life Cycle roadie friends over the last couple years, and had some extra. So I was able to, did very well on Yarn Chicken. I just have a tiny little bit left of that. Hopefully, Knit Picks has brought back Felice in their sock yarn, but I haven't seen it back in worsted. I think it's a great yarn to use for charity hats in particular, but just for hats in general. Just because it's self-striping, so it makes the yarn do the work. So anyway, the Be-Wind hat, great pattern. It's a free pattern, really easy, really high bang for your buck, I think. The other thing is a hoe, so it's a half-finished object. I think I mentioned last time, I did mention it, and thank you all for responding on how much yarn I should be expecting it to take to make Shorty Socks. A friend of mine in New York had seen my knitted socks when I was last visiting, and she said, oh, could you make me some socks? And I said, sure, but she says she normally wears Shorty Socks. I said, that's great. I have never made a pair. I mean, there's nothing that different about them than you're just knitting less of a leg, but I've never done them, and so that'll be fun. And so I started a pair and finished the first one yesterday. So this is the sock. I am using the formulas and pattern from Kate Atherly's book. I think it's called Custom Socks to Fit Every Foot, something like that, listed down below. And so for my friend, I'm going to make her 2 pair. And the first one I decided to do a traditional, heel flap and gusset. So that's what I've done here. This is she had taken some measurements for me, and so this is 60 stitches on a US 1, and so did heel flap and gusset, messed up a little bit on the heel flap, and ended up, picked up 2 extra stitches inadvertently, and the good news is that made it so that there was no little holes to have to deal with there, but then I ended up with 2 extra stitches that I had to what am I words finding decrease away, so my gusset was around longer than the pattern called for, and then knit her shoe length, and then or her foot length, and then Kate Atherly in her basic pattern has you decrease the toes down to like 8 stitches and then just sew them up. She has you do your decreases a little bit different than you traditionally would, so it's not just a pointy little toe. You actually have decreases that work. But I decided to do that and follow that pattern instead of doing my normal, which would be to decrease it down to like 16 or whatever, and then graft it. So we'll see. So this is Valkyrie Fibers, and it is her colorway is called Nightsisters. It's part of her. It's a trap series, which is a Star Wars universe themed collection, and I want to say it's BFL nylon, superwash BFL and nylon. I don't know the mix, but I'm pretty sure that's it because it's the first time I've used BFL. It's very nice. It feels like very sturdy. It's not. I wouldn't say it's super soft, but it feels like it's a solid sock. The fabric I like on the US one. It worked out very nicely. So I will start the next one. Twisted rib on the cuff. So I will try to get the cuff done before I jump on a plane maybe this week, just because that's the most fiddly part, doing the twisted rib, and then I'll maybe take this with me as an airplane project. Did this on 9-inch circle needles until I got to the toe, and then I did that on DPNs just because they were handy. Not my favorite way to do small circumference, but so I'm going to do 2 pairs for her. The second pair I'm going to, haven't picked out the yarn yet, but I'm going to do a short row heel. So probably the shadow wrap heel. And I will do a more traditional, my normal toe rather than the gathered up at the end. I will do a grafted toe on that. And then I will see which one she prefers. And so when I go to make socks for her in the future, I'll know which one she prefers. So that is it in terms of actually things that are finished, even though that one's only half finished. In terms of whips, let's do socks. So I've shown these before. I'm getting close. These are the Hello Spring 2023 colorway from Always Be Kind yarn that I ordered back in 2023, did 8 rows and then put them down and never touched them again until just recently I picked them up. Doing these obviously toe up, and I am using Laura from Always Be Kind Yarns diamond heel pattern. So there are the heels in the back. As you can see, the benefit to this technique is that it maintains the integrity of the stripes in the self-striping yarn. We'll see. It's kind of hard for me to gauge how these are gonna fit. It kind of feels big back there, but we shall see. She put them in these 2 little bags. Split the skein up. It was like a mystery kind of Advent thing. And I'm thinking I'm gonna go. I need to measure it, but I think I'm gonna go back to the top of this light pink, and then I will do the cuffs, and I'll do the cuffs in that kind of mauve-y pink again. But I also don't want to leave a ton of extra self-striping yarn, so I may just go a little bit longer. I have to, like I said, I have to measure it and see how long the leg is, but I may just go a little bit longer to use up as much of the yarn as possible. Hoping to get these finished in the next week or so. These are my one of my 2 social knitting projects right now, just because it's round and round and round, and I don't have to think about anything until the very end. My other social knitting project, and I've made some decent progress on this, although I was just joking with last episode, I said the raglans were killing me. The good news is I am through the raglan on this, and now just in the round and round and round on the body, but my goodness, these fingering weight sweaters do take some time. I was encouraged by my knitting group last night, our Zoom knitting group, which is also linked down below. Every Tuesday evening, Valerie from Creations by Valorie and A Visit with Nana and Papa on YouTube hosts a weekly Zoom, and we all just sit around and gab and show what we're working on. Someone on there encouraged me, because I was like, it's just taking forever. It doesn't seem like it's making any progress, was to use a progress keeper so they can actually see it's making progress. But here it is so far. It's bunched up because it's on the needles down below. But this is the Mohitt, M-O-H-I-T-T by Pasquale Designs. Like I said, I'm through the raglan. I've done about 3 or 4 inches below the split for sleeves. And I will just continue to work on the body of this, and then decide whether sleeves first or neck first. I did try it on and popped the sleeves out because I used very short barber cords, just to kind of see how it fit through here. I think it's gonna be fine. It felt a little tight, but it's superwash. It'll grow, I feel like, and I can probably block it out a little bit to make it a little less negative ease. And I'm at this point that I always fear whenever I think about doing a sweater, which is the neckline, because this looks gigantic, and I know that it will get smaller as I pick up and add stitches, but it doesn't seem like it's going to get small enough fast enough. So we're going to have to play around with decreases to try to pull that in. And it's always a challenge as I look at it, and maybe it'll be different. I have almost no experience in this. So I've made one crew neck pullover sweater, and that all worked out fine. So I should remember that all worked out fine. But this looks like gigantic, and it feels like it's going to require me making almost like a turtleneck to get it tied enough, fast enough. If anyone has any tips on neck shaping to not end up with like a big boat neck, which is how I feel like all sweaters knit for guys end up looking like, let me know if you have thoughts on how best to achieve that. But I am really liking how the yarn is knitting up. This is Pearls Before Wine, Ride Safe, Be Safe, colorway from my Stitch Out Loud collection that was a fundraiser last year for my bike ride. I'm doing helical knitting to sort of spread it out so it doesn't like pool, but I'm just really loving how the colors are spread out, and you just get those little blips of orange without it really noticeably like pooling anywhere. So I'm hopeful I can continue. I know it's going to be a little bit of a challenge on the sleeves because you're working in a smaller circumference, and so the patterning is going to change. I may end up trying a 3-way helical knit to change that up. I don't know, what else I can do, but I don't want it to be too noticeable. So again, this I really want to get done by end of May, because my goal is to take it on vacation with me and be able to enjoy it. I think it'll look great under a chambray shirt with some summer pants. And hopefully, I'll have learned a lot about constructing a raglan tee, and then move on to the next one, which I think is going to be 7 sleeves, just because I think that's a better looking final product generally. So that is the Mohit Tea by Pasquale Designs. I did not bring over here. Maybe I'll go get it in a second. The next thing I'm working on, and this is the thing, I'm really enjoying having fun with this. And so this is what I want to be working on, even though the deadline for this is not until September. My goal was to get one section of it done a month, but each time I pick it up, I'm like, oh, I just want to keep going. This is my Marled Magic shawl by Stephen West. So if you'll recall, I'm going to show you the front side here. I had this first section, which is the sort of meshy, lacy section here. I had that done last time. And then the second section is this seed stitch fade. So the first section, one yarn was held constant, and that was the fuzzy mohair, which was from Wandering Flock. And then in the second one, I'm doing it as a fade. So you're always holding two yarns together, but you change them one at a time to sort of create the fade. I did not do a great job of planning. You're supposed to end up with a certain number of these selvage stitches. So every 2 rows you get 1 stitch. And I kind of thought I had a calculation on how many rows of each color I needed to do before I switched. And part of it is I wanted to, where yarns where I only had a little bit, I just wanted to use it all up, because part of this exercise is getting rid of scraps. But I didn't really do the calculation right, so I've had to go back and dig through this pile again to pull out some more colors. So it's going to be a little more additional colors in the fade. A little over halfway here. We're in this dark section now. It's going to then move into, this is the yarn I'm using. One of the yarns I'm using, the other one I can't reach. And it's going to end up with this one and then going to a solid purple, and then it's going to kind of move from these blues and greens into more purple, and then finally end in a light, it's like a white and gray with speckles. So I think it'll be cool. Really enjoying it. I love digging out all the scraps to put this thing together, but I need to not be working on it because I have plenty of time to get that done before September. But I'm going to be, that seed stitch section is the May section. So my goal was to get, for the next couple months, do 1 section a month. And then once I'm back from vacation during the summer, we have a little more time to work on a big project that's not really portable, to speed things up and do, try to, because I think there's 8 sections to do a couple sections per month. So that's the Marled Magic from Stephen West. Really, really fun, modular, super scrappy, having fun with that. I'm going to grab one project that I left sitting over there, and I'm back. This is another long-term project. It had been my sitting in front of the TV and watching project, but now that I've got this t-shirt that I'm trying to get done in the next few weeks, as well as these the Hello Spring socks that I'm working to get through. This has kind of been put on the back burner, but I thought I'd show it since I have reached the halfway point, or now in the home stretch, early in the home stretch, I should say. And of course, it's on needles and not at the end of the row, so it's not going to be great to see. But this is the Habitation Throw from Helen Stewart. And this is an advent that I also bought years ago. I think it was from Goosey Fibers, and the theme of it was To Kill a Mockingbird. So all the minis have names that have something to do with the novel. And I've reached the halfway point, so it's been increasing. I've now turned the corner. You can see there's the corner. I've now turned the corner, and we're in the decreases. So I've got 12 more skeins to go. This will get picked back up. Sometimes I pick it up in the evening if I'm tired of going around and stocking that on the t-shirt, because this is a little more interesting to knit on. At least you have some increases and decreases and some yarn overs and things like that. But as much as I'd like to get it done, I'm kind of viewing that as, let me get that done before I would start a end of year advent. So I've got a couple more Advents. I'm not going to order one this year unless something really great comes along. And my goal would be to start another Advent at the appropriate time during Advent, and hopefully to have that done before then. So Habitation Throw, Helen Stewart, enjoying the pattern a lot. Think I will make another one. I have some ideas for a couple gifts, and I think that would be a good gift. The only other whip I have to show, I'll talk about the one I don't have to show first. So if you recall last time when I said the raglans were killing me, the other raglan that was killing me was a teeny tiny little raglan dress for Tilly the hare. Here's Tilly. And her dress goes underneath her little colorwork cardigan. And I had gotten to a point and I'd somehow messed up. My stitch counts were off. I was going to try to salvage it and just tink back a few rows to try to figure out where the stitch count was off. I did that. I thought I'd gotten it. Things were still off and I just got frustrated, so I ripped the whole thing out. So I'm not showing it because I'm right back to where I was. I've made maybe I made 2 rows of progress since last I showed it to you. So I will not show that again until I have the dress finished. Hopefully, sometime in the next week or so, we'll get that done because I'd like to get most of that project done before the beginning of June. It doesn't need to get done until mid-July, so I'm building in quite a bit of cushion. But it's also one of those things that is not a travel project. That is not a sit in front of the TV project. That is something I need to sit down and focus on because the pieces are so small that you're constantly, for the shaping, each row is different. You're never just going around and around and around. So that one takes a little more concentration on my end. So the last one that I have to show, this is my new walking project in my little no knits camo bag, which I love, and I have in 3 sizes. It's another hat because that's what I'm working on when I walk. And it has to be a pretty straightforward, simple hat. So this one is about as easy as it gets. This is the Colby hat by Elizabeth Doherty. It's a cool pattern in that it has, it's a very basic beanie, but she has it set up so that you can, based on your gauge, she has a formula where you can figure out how many things you need to cast on for different sizes at different gauges. It's a very versatile pattern. You get a lot of information in the pattern. I am doing it in stripes, as you can see. So this is Knit Picks Mighty Stitch worsted. So that's a acrylic wool blend is the main color, orange here. And then I had from some other charity hat down, I had some leftover. This is Felici worsted. I believe the colorway is called Friendly Skies. And so I'm just doing 2-row stripes up the body of the hat, and then I will, hopefully use up most of this, although probably we'll have enough, looking at it right now, for another hat. And I have some other Felici worsted scraps to make some future hats with. This is 2 walks. I started it. I always forget, since I don't live in a place where I can wear a lot of worsted weight, how fast worsted weight works up, and love that. And maybe someday I'll live in a cold climate again, and I can use worsted weight to make sweaters and not spend months and months and months going round and round on a fingering weight sweater. So that is the Colby hat by Elizabeth Doherty. Turned on to that hat by the gals over at Yarniac podcast, because Gail makes a lot of charity hats, and that's one of her go-to hats as well. So that's it in terms of the knitting and crocheting. I don't think there's any other projects that are really active right now that I didn't show or talk about, at least. In terms of acquisitions, I have a couple of acquisitions, but I actually have some heart mail. So I mentioned last time that I was participating in a yarn swap through the Pearls and Polish podcast. So Rachel at Pearls and Polish organizes this. She has done it at least for 2 years because I've done it for both of the years. It's a really, really fun event, a great way to get to know another knitter, at least, virtually if you're not local to each other. And I just so happened to get matched up this year with Rachel from Pearls and Polish. So it's been really, really fun getting to know her. If you don't subscribe to her podcast, go check it out. I think she does it weekly, and kudos to her. Hers are generally a little shorter than mine because she doesn't talk as much, I guess. But she's a great knitter. She's working on her first sock pattern to be released, so that's exciting. But it was just really cool to kind of get to know a little bit more about her and her family and what she likes to work on and things like that. So we swapped yarns. I sent her stuff off to her, and she was so sweet. She sent me a couple of skeins of yarn. Really exciting because they're both dyers that I've known about but have never had a chance to use their yarn, and so I'm really excited to get my hands on it and to work with it. And then she sent a bunch of other little cute goodies tied into things that we had talked about that I like. So there was like a coffee and a really amazing like hot chocolate mix from Italy, because I told her that I'm studying Italian and my husband speaks Italian, and that we have lots of friends in Italy as a result of travels. And so that was really cool. I think it's her like sister's boyfriend or boyfriend's sister or brother's girlfriend is from Italy, and this is something that they sold on their farm or near their farm. So that was really cool, and lots of like cool little goodies, including, and I'll show these first and then I'll talk about the yarn, because she knew I was starting to make some more garments. These little tags to sew in that say, "Good things take time, please take care of this," or "Look after it," hand wash, dye flat. And then she sent me 2 stitch markers. These are from 3 by the Sea Designs. So it's a little Eiffel Tower and a little croissant, which will be sort of referencing something that's coming up soon for us. But I thought that was really very, very sweet. So in terms of the yarn, and I already have like picked out my projects for this. So these are both fingering weight yarns, but the first one is from Woolberry. So I think she uses Woolberry quite a bit. The name of this is My Courage Always Rises. Oh, I think she said it was like a Pride and Prejudice quote. I forgot. But it's just a really nice tonal red. I don't know if the tonality is showing it, but it has some parts that are dark almost to a black little speck, but just a tonal red with this navy blue mini. I had said that after I got finished with these Always Be Kind socks, the next socks that I wanted to make for myself, I wanted to do a solid pair. So this is perfect. I had another pair and a pattern picked out. Actually, a pattern that Rachel had recommended on her podcast. She's a prolific sock knitter. But I'm going to save the yarn that I picked out for that. And so for these, which I think will be the next socks I cast on, I'm going to take the Summerly sock project book, and I think I'm going to do a cabled sock. So I haven't decided. She has 4 cabled sock in the book, and I'm kind of leaning towards either the one that's here in this mint green or the pink. This one, the honeycomb, I love that cable design. I have a pair of worsted weight socks that I knit. My very first pair of socks I knit, I think. It was one of my knit-alongs, Resolution socks, I think they were called, in worsted weight. And she does have that pattern in a fingering weight, but I think I'll do maybe that one, maybe just the little cable. The yellow one, Summerly says, this one takes a lot of time because I think it's cabled kind of all over. So the other ones are just one little cable running up or down. So I think those are the socks. I'm going to do cabled socks with this in heels and toes in the navy. So I think that'll be fun. I'm looking forward to branching out a little bit in terms of not just self-striping vanilla socks. And then the other yarn that she got me is from Red Stag Fiber, who I've seen at shows for the last few years. Absolutely beautiful, mainly tonals. I believe they're out of Texas. But this is from their Manor collection, and it's a Polwarth Masham blend. Absolutely beautiful. The colorway is called St. Andrews. So this is a sport weight. It's the Yorkshire Sport Base, 75% Polwarth, 25% Masham, and it's very, very soft. I mean, it feels woolly, but it's soft. And I think I want to make a cowl. So I was looking around, and I think I had a couple picked out, but I think the one I want to do is called Hetero Compagne, and I forgot to write the guy's name. But it is Tom something. It'll be listed down below, and maybe it's right here. Who knows? But he designed it in conjunction with Woolly Wormhead and one of their hats, which uses a short row color work. Here's a picture of the cowl. So that'll be fun. I got the Woolly Wormhead short row color work book. I've yet to make anything out of it. He did this as a companion to their hat pattern that uses that same motif. I don't know if I'm going to have enough of this yarn to make both, but we'll see at the end of the day. So what I did was I pulled out a skein of Spin Cycle. So I think I'm going to use, this is the main color, and this is the contrast for where the color work is. This is the Spin Cycle dyed in the wool. Colorway is Salty Dog, but I think there's just enough of the green in this to kind of pick it up, but obviously there's a huge contrast and it's going to be a really nice pop. So that's the plan. The Hetero Compagne, 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 cowl. And then if I have enough, maybe I'll make a hat, but I kind of feel like I'm not going to have enough to make both the hat and the cowl. So that's it. So those are all the fun things that Rachel, thank you, Rachel, for one, organizing the yarn swap, and two, for being such a great swap partner and new friend. So I appreciate that. Again, if you're not following Rachel's podcast, go check that out next year when she does the swap. It's a lot of fun. Highly recommend participating in that. In terms of an actual acquisition that wasn't just a gift, my April Woolens and Nosh self-striping sock club yarn arrived. I don't think this is a spoiler because it's been a while. If it is, don't look if you don't want to be spoiled. If not, don't worry. This is the April 2025 colorway. It is called Garden Supply. Looks good. Great colors for me. And this is on Michelle's Targhee fingering, which is 90% superwash Targhee and 10% nylon. So this will go into the growing self-striping sock yarn collection, and will eventually become a pair of socks or maybe a hat. I should probably look at maybe trying to do a hat or something with some of this self-striping sock yarn that I have. I have ideas for kind of continuing what I did for Knit Stars and doing some more hat patterns using self-striping sock yarn, but right now, kind of the same thing with the as I was talking about earlier with the Pride Pod Mal. Just my bandwidth for like taking on new stuff is just not right there. All I want to do when I have a moment of not constantly thinking about what's going on out there is just to kind of knit on things that I want to knit on that are nice and easy and at some point, I can get back to designing stuff if I feel like I need to. The only other thing that's an acquisition is just not here yet, so we'll show it next time. But as I'm sure many of you have seen, Brooklyn Tweed is getting out of the yarn business, and they're just going to be a design shop going forward. And I'm on their email list. I got an email saying, "Oh, we're selling all of our yarn 20% off." I don't have a lot of Brooklyn Tweed in my stash. I used it to make my husband a sweater, the very first sweater I ever made, this cardigan, and I loved working with it. I think it was Loft. It may have been Arbor, but I think it was Loft, and really loved working with it. Have always wanted to potentially do a sweater for myself in their yarn, and so I was kind of bummed to hear that they were getting out of the yarn business, although I'm sure they had very good reasons. So when they announced that they had a 20%, they were doing all their yarn 20% off, I went on and got a sweater's quantity of yarn to, at some point, make myself a colorwork sweater using Loft. I think I bought a skein of Imbue as well, which is all fingering weight. By the time I got the email, I don't know where I was that day, but by the time I got back home, the stock was a little picked over, and there weren't quantities left in what I would consider kind of my go-to colors, so like gray and navy. But they had a really nice, not maybe a little darker than this, but like a green kind of light olive, but not maybe this light. And then I can't remember what I picked several different contrast colors. I'll show them next time. And I think I've nailed or getting close to picking the pattern that I want to do. So we can talk about that next time as well if the yarn arrives in the next 2 weeks, which I expect it will be. So that is forthcoming. A little bit of a hit to my destashing down project, but at the end of the day, probably only net positive like 5 or 6 100-gram skeins, because I think those are coming in 50-gram skeins. So we're okay. We're okay for now. That is it. How to do 58 minutes. So I got it in under the time frame. Nobody has pulled into the driveway. The dog hasn't started going crazy. Winds all around. Thank you for taking some time to spend it with me. If you like this, please like, subscribe, share it with a friend. If you have any questions or comments, please share them down below, or feel free to drop me a line on email. I try to answer everything. I'm not always 100% great about that, but I try. And I look forward to sitting down with you in a couple of weeks. Hopefully I'll have finished at least one pair of socks, maybe 2. And hopefully I won't have started anything new, except maybe a walking project. Anyway, thank you so much for taking some time with me. Have a great couple of weeks. Be safe. Take care of yourself. Take care of everyone else. I'll see you soon. Bye.